What's up, everybody? My name is Sid, and I've teamed up with the big homie Reg to bring y'all something new, something we like to call Beyond the Scoreboard. Y'all be sure to review, rate, and subscribe. Let's get to it. Making these flips. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard. Y'all know me, I'm Sid. What's going on, Reg?
Oh man, off the hiatus, bro. It's been a minute, man. Good to be back.
It's been a good minute.
So many people on ask, hey, when y'all still recording? When you gonna get another show? I said, man, look, maybe when football starts, but we got one in before football, so all is well.
Exactly. And that I always knew that's when we were gonna end up picking it back up. You know, we had a little we was able to let life take over and give us a break from it, but football coming back around, so we gotta get back to it. Man, so a lot has happened since the last time we sat down and did this. I think the last time had to have been right after the draft.
I think
When
so.
we were
Yeah.
able to sit here and have a show. So I don't think we touched on the playoffs in the NBA at all going into that. Um and the last time we talked, I want to say the Saints were still about $50 million over the cap. So that's changed tremendously since that point. Today we sit at about $11 million under the cap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's a whole bunch of restructuring. Ryan Ramchick finally got that huge extension that we were waiting on.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
we're still trying to figure out what's going on with Marshawn Lattimore, if he's going to face any suspensions going forward and how that's affecting his contract negotiations. Marcus Williams, the franchise tag players deadline is passed, so we know he's playing on basically a 1 year deal for this season.
Yep.
David Onyemata suspended for 6 games.
Yep.
That's
That's
huge at this
Yeah, I was
point
about to
right
say
now.
that's real big. A lot of people don't know who David Allen is, but he's definitely made a name for himself these past couple years, and he's definitely been our best D tackle at least the last 2 years. So
Yeah,
really
yeah,
big.
and he's one of those gems that we found. I was he drafted or was he undrafted? I think we
I,
signed
I,
him
th-
as an undrafted free agent.
I think he was drafted.
He was drafted. Yes,
I
okay.
think.
Yeah, but he was
Man,
either a late round draft pick or an
mhm.
undrafted free agent. So he's definitely been one of those gems that's paid off for us
Yep.
and one that we were really looking towards for this season, letting Sheldon Rankins walk um and then trading away Malcolm Brown to free up that cap space. So he was somebody we're definitely going into the season looking to rely on. Today, I wake up to the news that Michael Thomas is having another surgery, and he might
Al-
not be ready for week one.
Almost burned my jersey on the spot. On the spot.
And I man, that's not what I wanted to wake up to see. We can't afford to have any player that's that good and become riddled with injuries. This is starting to become a thing for him,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's not worth the pay right there.
I mean, just taking it a step further, he's the only receiver at this point that
Yeah.
we have that has shown that he can not only be a number one, but just we're able to count on him for anything. He's the
Yeah.
only receiver on the whole depth chart. And going back to David Onyemata, he was drafted in the fourth round in 2016. But even that situation is bigger than what it seems because he's the only D tackle we have. I mean, for years we've gotten away with having great rotation guys on the
Mhm.
line, period. Our front seven has really anchored the Saints defense for the past couple years. And like you said, Malcolm Brown has moved on. Shelton Rankins have moved on. Even on the end, we got Hendrickson who has moved on. It's going to be ugly, man. It's really going to be ugly.
So sticking with that, what would be your approach to this? Like I say, our depth chart right now consists of um Tyler Davison and Malcolm Roach, the guy we just got from Kansas City. I know he's listed as a defensive end, but he does a lot of inside work, so he's
Right.
going to get some work right there too. I feel like I'm missing somebody.
Well, just to cut in a little bit, you already know the praises I sung to Malcolm Roach even last year, early in preseason. He showed that he had a high motor. He can move people in the interior. Um, Davison isn't a huge drop off from Sheldon Rankins, believe it or not, because he missed so much time these last few
Yeah.
years. So it's not that we are just horrible, but to know
Yeah.
that just to know that what the defense used to be a couple years ago, and now you're looking at bare minimum, it is a concern. You touched on Marcus Williams with his $10 million deal. I told you from the get go, as soon as he signed, I felt like the Saints was comfortable saying, "Hey, if we don't get a long term deal done, cool, fine, whatever." And I know that I felt like they wasn't gonna press the issue. Um, Me on the other end, I would have took that money. I would have liked for the Saints to take that money and put it towards the defensive line. You got a lot of guys like Geno Atkins still out there, Kawan Short, Gerald McCoy, who coming back from injury. You probably could get a lot of those guys on the low. Melvin Ingram, if you wanted to put another dog on the end of
Oh,
Cam Jordan.
he signed. He signed
Well,
up with Pittsburgh. Yeah.
he just signed. I'm
Yeah.
saying he
Yeah. Yeah.
just. So I'm just saying we had that money to go get guys and kind of build back to what made us the Saints these last couple of years, which has been the defense.
So when it comes to um the defensive line situation. Like I say, these past few years we've been so deep. Like you say, we've had such a rotation of
Mm-hmm.
guys that we can move in and out of there, and even to where last year we were down rankings and. Another guy had went down, and we were looking at it, was like, we're gonna be fine. Like we got so many guys to plug in right there that we're gonna be fine. I think right now, like I say, I'm good with Tyler Davis, and I like Malcolm Roach. Like you say, we both praised him a good bit last season. But I think and we got to add somebody, and I think we needed to add somebody anyway, even before the suspension. So whether it's reaching out to Geno Atkins or Jared McCoy, or a guy like that that's still out there, I think bringing in a veteran like that or a Quan Short, bringing in a veteran like that would definitely help us. Like I say, especially now that for 6 games we're going to be missing our best defensive tackle, and we're going to be going up against running backs like Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley. Um, I think we got Zeke in the first 6 weeks. So we definitely have
I think he at the
Christian
end.
McCaffrey. I know we got Christian McCaffrey in the first six
Yeah.
weeks. So yeah, we got a lot of Chris Carson.
Mm,
So yeah, we got a lot of guys that we need to be plugging that middle up for in those
yeah.
first 6 weeks. So that's something that now we have to address when we already were in a position to where we need another receiver. To we got to add another wide receiver. We have to add another cornerback. Like that cornerback more than anything else. We have to add another cornerback. And like I say, now we're under the cap by $11 million, which is amazing, but we knew we were going to get here eventually. Um, but now it's we went from having to address just two positions to now we have to address three. Um, the trade market for cornerback seems to be where the Saints are looking right now. From everything that I'm seeing, it seems more likely that we trade for a guy than sign anybody off the street, which for the longest I had been saying Richard Sherman was that guy, but because of the trouble he's come into this past week, 2 weeks, I think that's off the board. Um, so now you hear Xavier Howard's name being brought up. You're hearing J.C. Jackson. You're hearing I've heard Bradley Roby over the past week, and the other guy Stephon Gilmore, which I don't think I'm a fan of at this point, just because of the money he's going to demand in a trade situation. But where would you like to see that going now? The cornerback situation.
Well, you know how I felt about Rabbit last season, man. I felt like he gave us a lot opposite side of Lattimore. I wouldn't break the bank for a corner. Like kind of how you feel about Stephon Gilmore. Sure, he's the best corner out of those guys, the most proven. But I'm not. I just feel like we need to take care of the front four first. Like if we could get the front four first, that makes the corner's job that much easier. But it really doesn't matter who you get. You can go get Stephon Gilmore. If we can't get to the quarterback, then what you gonna ask him to cover for 7 seconds like he was doing in New England? You know what I'm saying, basically. So I would like to see us take the veteran approach, get a guy, kind of like on the low, kind of like when we got Keenan Lewis from Pittsburgh. He came over on a very team friendly deal. When we got Jack Rabbit, he came over. He didn't break the bank or anything of that nature. So I would like to take that approach to it. Bradley Roby, it kind of seemed like he's played himself out of Houston anyway,
Yeah,
especially with the mishaps from last season toward the end. And they have the right, I believe it's something tricky, like they can cut him and don't have to really pay him nothing.
yeah.
He's
He's the definition of what you were just saying about a team friendly deal. Like he's
Yeah,
definitely
so
on a team friendly deal.
yeah, and if we can get if we can get a front four in position that can be consistent, I don't expect us to have a guy that's second in the lead in sacks again, like
Yeah,
Trey was. But if we can just be consistent, don't get hit with injuries. COVID's out there, so that's a whole nother
yeah.
world. If we can just get a group of guys in the front four where we can have rotation guys and we can get pressure good enough, I would be very comfortable with having a guy like Bradley Roby.
So we actually see this differently because I obviously am going into this with a little more confidence in our front four than you are. Even with the suspension of Ayamana and the losses that we have, I still have a good amount of confidence in our front four. But once again, we're going from where the interior for the past two seasons has been the best in the league or one of the best in the league to coming down a good bit from that. But overall, I still think it's a good group. I the Me and you talk about all the time how we've gone so many seasons dreading our second cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take that anymore. Like I can't go through that. Like you said, Janoris Jenkins came in and he was able to be real solid. Um, and honestly, we didn't have to pay him a ton of money.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, Do I want to pay Stephon Gilmore? No, but I don't want to pay Stephon Gilmore because he's going to be demanding best in the league money
Like he
because
should.
that's what he considers himself.
Like he
Which
should.
he should, yeah,
Right.
as he should. I'm not willing to do that. JC Jackson is a guy that I told you I love JC Jackson. JC Jackson, I think, is due $3 million this year. They put a second round tender on him. Nobody matched it or offered him anything, so they're paying him $3 million. He's set to be a free agent next year. That's a guy I would definitely like to see them move on.
Definitely.
Xavier Howard has a deal that's reasonable right now, but his thing is he wants more
Wants-
money.
Exactly.
So it depends on
And,
what exactly that amount looks like if you're willing to take that chance.
And just to be honest with you, Casey Jackson, he's a guy that's kind of flying under the radar. A lot of
Yeah,
people don't know who
absolutely.
he is, the mediocre
100%.
football fans. But if you're really into football, then you know what he do. He's a speed guy. He's a man corner. He played phenomenal. You can line him up in the slot. He had his opportunities to guard Tyreek Hill, and he did a great job. He does all this. So I'm just saying, yeah, you can get him on a low, which is cool because I'm not even trying to look too far in the future. So if
Yeah,
we get him, cool. Do I want to give up a second round pick for him though? No.
I would. I would give up a second round pick for him or Xavier Howard, honestly. The Xavier Howard thing, like I say, you got to figure out the money before you try to pull a trade on him.
Yeah, and I just
JC
feel like
Jackson is a guy that I would definitely like 20. I think he's 24, 25 years old.
yeah,
Like you say, he's flying under the radar right now, which would probably work in our favor when it comes to contract negotiations going forward. 8 interceptions last year. So JC Jackson would be the top of my list right now. Because like you say, at this moment, that's it don't get more team friendly than $3 million for this season.
yeah.
But also he's somebody whose play is outstanding or has been outstanding.
And see, the thing that I think about is how many great years we had with Cam Jordan, but we had no one opposite side of him, and the defense suffered from it tremendously. We had a horrible defense every single year. Drew Brees throwing for 45 to 5,000 yards. Cam is getting 10 sacks a year, and yet we finish in bottom five, bottom seven in total defense. So when we got consistent at being good at defense is because we can find someone to plug and play opposite side of Cam Jordan. Even if it was Alex, what's his name, Alex Okafor, and another guy combining for 10 sacks on the year, we were finding other ways to get to the quarterback besides Cam. And Trey he balled out last season, second in the lead in sacks. Cam kind of had somewhat of a slump year, so I'm kind of unsure about if Cam just had a bad year or if that's just age starting to catch up to him. So knowing that Cam may not be Cam of old, Davenport haven't lived up to absolutely anything this year. I mean, we have to have something concreted on the front four. And as of right now, we don't have that.
And I don't think we're in a position now to where we're going to get that. If you don't feel like we have anything concrete right now, there's nobody out there that's going to shore that up for us right now either. So I don't like. There's no. I feel like if we're already taking chances on guys, so let's take a chance on the guys that we're already invested in. Davenport, Peyton Turner, the guy we just signed from Kansas City. That's what we got. That's what we're gonna have to roll with. I don't really see anybody out there that can change life.
Well, once again, yeah, and I agree.
Right now.
I agree with you. I just was saying why I didn't want to give up that second round pick because, coming back the following year in the draft, you can address some of those things. I'm just not a fan of. Matter of fact, New England. They showed you. I'm not a fan of having a great secondary. To me, it's like video game stuff. Like you got this amazing secondary, but you got nobody that can get home. You got to send 5 and sometimes 6 guys to make the quarterback throw the ball a second or 2 faster. You so predictable. Man-to-man coverage. What you see is what you get. It's the easiest defense to beat, for any decent quarterback in the NFL. So I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that team. I felt like the last at least 3 years, the defense has held its own. And we have to find a way to get pressure on the quarterback because that's when the Saints defense is at its best.
Yeah, and like I said, we just differ on where the confidence that we have in our front four right now. I'm higher on them than you are. So
now, if they prove something this year, cool. Or even halfway into the season, whatever, cool. But I'm just saying I'm not confident because we never had a full season with Davidson as our first or second defensive tackle. We haven't had a full season as Davenport as our DN. So I'm just saying I can't bank on that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But once again, I'm not trying to bank on. I'd rather bank on that than banking on Patrick Robinson being our second corner for this season.
Oh, now
So I can.
It's not even an option. Like, chill.
So, so if there are players out there who are gettable, J.C. Jackson, like if we could go get them, like and if it's a second round, especially going into next year when we have a boatload we got more draft picks than we normally have. We got 3 or 4 compensatory picks that's going to end up being third rounders supposed to be coming in next year because of the guys that we've lost. So we have a way to make up a little bit of what we give away if it is to get somebody like that.
Yeah, I feel you.
Saints. Training camp is approaching soon. So going forward, of course, we're going to talk a lot about that. But the biggest competition that there is in the NFL this season, Taysom Hill versus Jameis Winston, is about to take off. Once again, in my opinion, the competition behind closed doors should already be over with, and I'm hoping that that's actually the case. But it will be interesting to see our first quarterback competition in 15 years probably. It's going to make it's so hard to watch preseason football sometimes and keep real up to date with what's going on with training camp and stuff like that. And this is probably the first storyline New Orleans has had that has me intrigued to actually be really plugged in throughout training camp and the preseason. So that's going to be something to look forward to. But man, we got a quarterback competition for first time in a very long time. And sadly, I got a feeling that this won't be the last season in the near future where we're going into training camp having a quarterback competition.
Definitely. I don't see it much as a competition as most people see it. I see it as Jameis Winston is the starter. However, I really do think Taysom Hill will stay in the same exact role that he was in last year, which is come in goal line situations, third and short situations. But I think they're going to allow him to pass the ball a little bit more than what they did last year and the year before. Now that's not saying much because he hardly ever threw the ball. I'm talking
Yeah,
about when he wasn't the starter, when he came in
yeah.
on special occasions. So I just think that they are going to open up the playbook a little bit more for him in those type of situations. But I just think it's going to be the same old Taysom Hill game plan that we've already seen.
And I see that a little differently. I feel like they go into a situation where they eliminate that going forward. I don't think
Eliminate
uh,
what?
the Taysom Hill gadget guy. I think they eliminate that going into this season. I don't think that you of course, with Drew Brees the past few seasons and the injuries and him getting older and things like that, you were able to give Taysom Hill more opportunities. But with Jameis Winston being a much younger quarterback, much stronger arm, much more athletic person than what Drew Brees was, I don't see that. I don't feel that they're going to think there's too much reason to be pulling Jameis Winston off the field in order to put Taysom in. I don't think he gives in any situation more of an advantage than what Jameis does. Even if you're saying we want to see some option every now and then, Jameis is capable of doing so. And I don't think that there's going to. I think this is a two quarterback roster this season. I don't think we keep three quarterbacks that way. And if that's the case, you can't put Taysom Hill in situations to where you letting him get his head blown off or just taking unnecessary hits. So I
Yeah,
don't think that the gadget Taysom Hill guy is going to be somebody we see this season.
yeah, and I definitely think we will. We definitely disagree there more than ever. So I don't want to see Jameis Winston come close to running a option. Period.
I mean, I
But
don't see the option being ran in general in New Orleans, but he's just as much as capable as anybody else at this point. I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson, but he can successfully complete an option play.
I don't think Jameis Winston is outrunning no one on the option. But
Taysom Hill isn't either. He's just attempting to run people over. He's not outrunning anybody.
he's not a liability back there when he does decide to take off. I mean, Taysom moves to be that big, and like you said, he's looking for contact. That's much different from a guy like Jameis Winston who have no wiggle, not trying to run nobody over, no acceleration. But anyway,
I was gonna say, Red, since when do you want your quarterback trying to run anybody over?
well,
He's
that's what I'm
still your
saying.
quarterback. Whether he's your backup or your starter, you don't want him trying to run anybody over at any time.
But this is what I'm saying. Last year he was the backup quarterback, and he did just that. And what I'm saying,
Last year, Jameis Winston was the backup quarterback, and that allowed Taysom Hill to be able to do his gadget stuff. Because if Taysom Hill got hurt, what was going to happen? Jameis
see,
Winston would still go quarterback.
see it, he wasn't. Drew Brees went down, and Taysom Hill got the start.
Breeze went down, and Jameis Winston came in and finished the game. And then they decided to let Taysom go into the next week as the starting quarterback.
And the week after that, the week after that, and the week after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That doesn't semantics because once again, if he was truly the backup quarterback, he would have came in and finished that game.
But
There wouldn't have been no need to try to prepare him in the manner that they had to go about doing so in order to let him play. They kept three quarterbacks on the roster.
But you can also look at it in this sense. The game that Drew went down, you can say, well, they had a lot of packages what Taysom Hill was going to be in, whether it was in a slot position, a tight end position, a flex position, or whatever, because he was so heavily featured in this game plan, we couldn't afford to pull him and put him at quarterback. But I think him getting the opportunity to play start quarterback for four
You
games in a row says a lot.
you think Trevor Simeon is on our active roster for 17 games next season?
If not him, it wouldn't surprise me if it's someone. That's all I'm saying. It
Who?
wouldn't surprise me. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me
I'm
if they decide to keep Trevor Seaman on the roster
active
for
roster,
all
a
16
53-man
games.
roster.
That wouldn't just blow my mind away.
It
That
would
would,
blow my mind. It would
yeah,
blow
it
my
wouldn't
mind.
blow me away.
I think that for one, you're having a quarterback competition for a reason. Whether it's because you paid the money to Taysom, like we talked about last season, where it was like, look, you
Yeah,
paid him the money, so
he's
you
got
have to
to save
see
face.
what it is that he has. So
Right.
whether it's because you just paid him the money, or it's because you really think that he can go out there and be your starting quarterback, either
Right.
way, there's no either way, there's not a good enough quarterback on your roster to be active every week of the season in order to continue letting Taysom Hill play gadget guy.
But that's what he is. That's who he is. If you
Obviously,
remove, if you
obviously,
re,
no, go ahead.
if you remove him from gadget guy, as you say, then you literally took away at least 80% of the whole reason that he's there and the reason he got paid. He got paid for what he already done versus, and if we need you to step in and play quarterback, we feel comfortable with you playing quarterback. If we need you on third and short, we feel comfortable. If we need you in the red zone, we feel comfortable. Once again, it's hard for me, and we talked about this last season. We kept saying, well, Taysom Hill is the backup quarterback, and you're like, Reg, that man is not the backup quarterback. And I'm like, Sid, he's listed as our backup quarterback. True enough, Jameis Winston did finish that game, but for 4 weeks, that says a lot. They could have played
No,
him again.
it says it says exactly what you told me last year, which is what I just brought up. You paid him, so you have to see what he's worth, whether you want to or not. You paid
But
him. You got to
but
see what he's worth.
but
I think the mindset was always James Winston is the better quarterback, but we paid him. We
but
have to
true
see what he's worth.
but true enough, do you think Sean Payton was ready to gamble the season?
I think Sean Payton was confident enough in the talent around our team to know that he wasn't going to lose many games during the stretch without Drew Brees,
In the
regardless of
first
who he put back there.
in the first 2 games of Taysom Hill starting, did he do anything to make you say he has a chance to be a
In
starting
six
quarterback?
games, how many games did he start? Five, six. In the there wasn't one snap where I looked at Taysom Hill and was like, he has a chance to be our starting quarterback going forward.
Okay, so and that's what
But
I'm
I'm
saying.
But I'm also saying that Trevor Siemian isn't a better quarterback than Taysom Hill, and Ian Book isn't a better quarterback than Taysom Hill. Therefore, your insurance is still Taysom Hill. Like you can't afford to put Taysom Hill in there as a gadget guy, and he gets concussed, and then Jameis gets hurt, and then you're looking at Ian Book.
Sid, if that
Because
happens,
then you
then you
throw away a season.
if that happens, you're screwed regardless. Like if
I
those two things,
disagree. Because I mean, I
if
just
James, listen, hold on. If
go ahead.
Jameis Winston gets hurt, right? Let's say he's out for 10 weeks,
Yeah.
and then next game, Taysom Hill gets a concussion catching a ball. What he's paid to do, catch a ball and get a concussion. He's like, either way it go, you
Well, no,
screwed.
he's not paid to do that. That's the point.
What you want
But
him to do,
with the
Sid?
quarterback competition, they're telling you we're giving this man an opportunity to be our starting quarterback. They're
Sid,
not.
what
It's like
what do
so.
you what do you want Taysom Hill to do this year? That's my question to you.
I
What do you
want him to be in Green Bay or Pittsburgh. I want him on another team. That's what I want. But he's here. That's the point. He's here. So
so
what I need from a person who you're telling me, Sean Payton's telling us it's a quarterback competition. That means that man is a quarterback from here on. I don't want to hear nothing about him playing
oh
tight
my
end. I don't
God,
want him
that's
being a
crazy.
returner. I don't want him.
Oh my
I don't want him.
God, that's
None of you are either my starting quarterback or my backup quarterback. Nothing more.
oh wow,
That's
yes.
I want unless you're gonna somehow come across a quarterback of Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, that type of caliber to where you can actually play three quarterbacks and afford to risk Taysom Hill like that. But
Yeah.
regardless of how you look at it, he's our second best quarterback on our roster, and that's never been the case.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to see that happen. See it definitely. Yeah, we totally disagree on that one, man. I want to see Taysom Hill in just as much as the next guy, doing everything that he can and everything that he's done for us in
Taysom,
the past.
does Taysom Hill as a gadget player give us a better chance to win football games than Taysom Hill, the quarterback, versus Trevor Siemian, the quarterback?
Oh,
Like
Taysom
him,
Hill.
exact as a quarterback. Like so,
Right.
you have to protect that
But
going
see,
forward.
yeah, but it's not gonna go like that though. I really don't think. I mean, it would really surprise me to see them say, "Hey, Taysom Hill, who runs into people and runs a 4.5, 4.6, whatever. We just gonna sit you down with all this strength and all this speed and all this durability you have. We just gonna sit you on the bench until Jameis Winston get hurt. Like, that's crazy.
It's not crazy. Every it's how every other quarterback room goes in the NFL.
Yeah,
We're
but
gonna
every
start a quarterback. We're gonna have a backup that's gonna sit his ass down with a clipboard and wait till his time comes.
but every other quarterback in the NFL is not 245 running 4.5 and looking for contact.
True story, and that's why he shouldn't be a quarterback in the NFL. But it's what we got.
All right,
It's
see.
what we got. So let's get off of that because we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about that going forward. Unfortunately, but it's gonna be interesting to see how that shakes out, especially because we see it so differently.
Right.
Once again, so let's move on to the NBA. Man, before we left, we didn't even get a chance to speak on or predict anything about the NBA playoffs.
Right.
And now, just wrapped up what it was Tuesday with Milwaukee winning in 6 games over the Phoenix Suns, which is probably the most unlikely NBA Finals matchup we've had since, man, it's been a long time, honestly. A lot of injuries took place during this postseason. Uh, is once again, I don't put any asterisk on any championship. Like there's things that happen every season that you're gonna look at and say, well, if this didn't happen or that didn't happen, things are gonna play out differently. So I wasn't gonna let anybody put an asterisk on the Lakers championship last year because we were in a bubble. I'm not gonna let anybody put an asterisk on this championship because players got hurt. Um, that being said, I told you before. I told you when Brooklyn was full health. I was going to take Milwaukee. That shows to like Kevin Durant almost beat Milwaukee by himself. So if they were at full health, they would have been able to beat Milwaukee because Milwaukee throughout the postseason was such an inconsistent team. Not Giannis, of course. Giannis is, if you want to tell me he's the best player in the league right now, you can, but he's the top 3 player in the league. And he played as such throughout the postseason.
True.
But Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, who you gave up so much for, those guys were so inconsistent throughout the postseason that it had most people take Phoenix in that series. So Giannis, there's no denying his greatness. He put on one of the best NBA Finals performances I've ever seen, especially after going into the series. You didn't know if he was going to play at all during the series.
Yep.
So props to Giannis, props to Chris Middleton, props to Drew Holiday. Like they all showed up when it mattered, but definitely a tough and rough ride getting there.
Yep.
But what did you think about the whole playoffs and how that ended up shaking out?
The playoffs in general, like you said, injuries, it really kind of, I don't want to say destroyed it, but I feel like it took so much away from the what could have been games. I'm not sure if Phoenix beats a fully healthy Lakers team. I'm not sure. I'm not here to argue with you if you're going to tell me they are. I'm just saying I'm not sure that they beat the Lakers if the Lakers are fully healthy. However, it was great to see KD show to me why he's the best player on the planet at this point. If once again, if you want to tell me Giannis, not going to argue with you. If I had my pick, I'm taking a healthy KD. But it was good to see the younger guys, the Devin Bookers and Chris Middletons have their moments this year. It was good to see. However, just touching on the finals in general, I told you when we spoke, if Giannis is even 75%, I like Milwaukee. But if Giannis is, 50% in and out of the lineup, then yeah, I'm going with Phoenix. But I just felt like I want the better team was Milwaukee. They've been together a little bit longer. They knew each other, longer, had more chemistry. They added Drew Holiday. Giannis is a little bit better than what he even was last year, the year before that. So I just felt like they had a more better balance and chemistry. They brought on PJ Tucker, who's one of the best 3-and-D guys that you can find in basketball, even at his later age. So I just felt like Milwaukee was the better team. When Phoenix pulled off on a 2-0 run, I will say that I was like, wow, Phoenix is going to win this.
Yeah.
But to me, the difference was the approach that they took to defend Phoenix. I love the fact that Drew Holiday hounded Chris Paul. His offense was so unexpected. Like, I have never seen Drew Holiday play that bad in all of my
Yeah.
life offensively. And I can't even say he made up for it on the defensive end because he was so bad offensively.
Yeah.
But offensively, I would probably give him an F. I'm
Yeah.
being honest. And I'm a fan of Drew. I would give him an F. But defense, I would have to give him a B. Because what he done was guarded Chris Paul from one end to the other. Sometimes Chris Paul will hit him with a step back, a snatch back, a pump fake, get him in the air, draw contact, whatever. But what that did was allow Phoenix other guys to get cold. Nobody else could find a stroke but Chris Paul and Devin Booker. And like you said when we spoke, it turned into, okay, if you're gonna shoot all these twos, we can live with that.
Uh-huh.
Hey, go ahead. As long as you're not lighting us up from this 3-point line and Devin Booker is shooting our eyes out and all this and that. And by Drew Holiday, first of all, stepping up and taking on that responsibility of hounding Chris Paul, that allowed Brook Lopez not to get involved in pick and roll so much because they was calling the pick damn near way above the 3-point line on Brook Lopez, which allowed Chris Paul to get to his mid range so easy for a wide open pull up. But by Drew stepping up and saying, I'm fighting every screen, I'm going under every screen, I'm picking you up from one end of the court to the other, that made life easier for Brook Lopez and eventually the whole Milwaukee team.
Yep. And like you say, man, they ended up, look, all right, we done lost these first two games. Guess what? From here on out, you not getting to this rim and you not shooting it from the 3-point line. Anything in between this, you can have it. We're gonna take it.
Yep.
And them losing Sarge really hurt them, not because Sarge is a great player, but he was the only thing else that they had that was really substantial when it came from height and being able to actually put a body on somebody defensively. But DeAndre Ayton showed his youth during that series. He's just young right now. Like he's going to get better. He's going to get like he's just young right now. And Giannis isn't. And Giannis say whatever I want to do, I'm going to do. Like whether it's DeAndre Ayton or anybody else y'all want to try to throw at me, I'm going to do what I want to do. And DeAndre Ayton isn't there yet to be able to go at Milwaukee as he should have been doing on the offensive end, but neither to be able to go at Giannis or a player like that on the defensive end when it became his sole responsibility, basically.
And a lot of people not going to understand that because just as much as people start liking DeAndre Ayton, just as soon as folks start liking him, this happened. He runs into he runs into Giannis, and it's like, all right, keep doing what you've been doing, but go out here and defend Giannis. And people don't even understand, like, when you got a guy that's been in the league 7-8 years, who have won multiple MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, been on the same team, same coaching staff, he know Chris Middleton, all this stuff. And then you get a guy who's just learning the game of basketball because he got this iconic point guard in Chris Paul. That's a big responsibility to say, go out there and guard that guy. I was mad at Giannis for not going out there and guarding KD. You know what I'm saying? So just imagine how Ayton felt having the responsibility of Giannis. Exactly. But one thing I would like to say about Giannis, the game of basketball, when I say my favorite, like, I don't use that word lightly. Like in football, I'm kind of, he's one of my favorite players, guys who don't even play for the Saints. But with basketball, I really don't use that word lightly. Giannis has been a guy that I've been rooting for these past couple years, but to see him improve, and what I mean by improve, I mean like understand the game of basketball. You know how hard it is to shoot an air ball in the playoffs and then the very next possession come right back and still look for contact to go right back to the free throw line? Like, no disrespect to LeBron James. Everybody who know me know I'm a huge Bron fan. But even Bron wasn't doing that this early in his career. Hell, even in his later career, he ran from the free throw line. But to see Giannis take 75 seconds at the free throw line before shooting that free throw, but still have the mindset to go into the free throw line, I mean, you have to respect that, man.
100%, 100%. This was, and this was every Milwaukee. No one had a Milwaukee Phoenix NBA Finals. So once, so once they got on that stage, you have to look because we're looking at it and we're saying Giannis has been so close these past few years and has stumbled. Whether it was what Toronto 1 year, last year was Miami when it
Mm-hmm.
took it to him, but he's getting to these Eastern Conference Finals and not being able to get to that next level. Phoenix is a team that we're talking about hadn't been to the playoffs in a decade, let alone a conference finals or NBA finals. So
Yeah.
and then you have the Chris Paul situation, who had never been to an NBA finals in 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get there, it's really look. We don't know if this ever is going to happen again because hell, we done fought so hard and they haven't happened before.
Right.
Who wants it more?
Right.
Giannis wanted it more, one
Right.
hundred percent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's really what it came down to. But once again, like for him to not be the type of player that everybody glamors over these days, he doesn't shoot the three. He's like you say, he suffers at the 3 point line. I mean, at the free throw line. He's not flashy. He's none of that. He's hard nosed. I'm gonna put my head down and I'm gonna get this work done.
Mm-hmm.
And for a player like that, in a league where super teams have really taken over, for him to have the same mentality that Dame has had up until this point. Look, no, I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna win here. For
Right.
him to be able to do that, that keeps the landscape of the NBA from becoming even more so a super team league than it already has become. And
And
that's important too.
and for all the people who want to discredit Milwaukee's championship because of the injuries, to me, this is the ultimate counter. Well, this guy stayed here on this team and didn't team up with no one.
Yeah.
So if you're going to tell me that these other teams had a superstar hurt, well, they still had a superstar. At
Yep.
the end of the day, that's all Milwaukee had was a superstar. You know what
Exactly.
I'm saying? True enough, KD almost beat him by himself, but
And
if
that's just and like we just talked about, that's just an instance of one better superstar. Like, yeah,
right.
Kevin Durant was probably the only superstar that could have took on Giannis 1-on-1 in this playoffs and beat him.
Right. So even if Milwaukee had one more superstar, like whether it's Kyrie or James Harden, I
Yeah,
feel like Brooklyn advances and they go on to win it all.
yeah,
But I refuse to discredit anything Giannis or Milwaukee done. You can't even say his role players was on fire or they played great because PJ Tucker went MIA. We all saw Drew Holiday struggle, and yet he found a way to put the team on his back and get a ring. So.
and the same thing about Phoenix. Like, I can't discredit Phoenix's getting to the NBA Finals because just like you said, first round Anthony Davis went down. Guess what? Guess who's still there? LeBron James still there.
Mm-hmm.
Second round, he went to Denver. Jamal Murray hasn't been there for a long time. Jokic pulled it out his ass. He went and got him an MVP. Jokic still the best player on that court.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the Clip, went and played the Clippers. Yeah, Kawhi didn't. Paul George still there. Like,
Yep.
so, in all of those series, you looking at it and saying, "Well, shit, Phoenix still probably doesn't have the best player on the floor at this point."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And guess what? They still made it to the NBA Finals. So, like I say, that asterisk or trying to discredit teams. No, but like,
Yep.
do I think that this is? Do I think Phoenix gets back here next year? No, I don't.
No. No.
Would it shock me if Milwaukee did? No.
No.
So it played out how it could have in general. Besides, so yeah, it is what it is.
So we
Um,
got a couple minutes left, and I want to kind of look into this upcoming off season of the NBA a little bit, and kind of just do the what ifs or what you believe is going to happen. What would you like to see happen around the league? Ben Simmons has been the topic of many, many, many conversations. Um, First of all, if you're Philly, do you keep him? Do you
no,
invest in them
there's no
anymore?
way. There's no
No
way.
way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, not at this point. And it's not even because of his play on the court. It's how the people around him have taken the issue with it and been vocal about it. So
Hmm.
now you casted more doubt on somebody who's already doubting himself to an extreme level, obviously, and you add Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid coming out and being expressing even more doubt about him. That doesn't help any. He needs to change his scenery now.
Yeah. The thing about it is, I don't see a team that he can go to and like immediately bring impact. Well, I don't want to say immediately because he's so good defensively that he can do something. But what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying is for this to fix this number one overall pick image, I'm not sure how he goes about doing it. I would like to see him take more of a Giannis approach. Smaller guy on you, take him to the rack, straight up. Anytime you below the free throw line, you got to kind of think shoot the basketball. I'm just taking it back to early stages of basketball.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I want because you have to start somewhere. It's kind of
Yeah.
like with Lonzo Ball's shot. You got to first shoot. You know what I'm saying? And get
Mm-hmm.
accustomed to saying, okay, I have to take this shot. Then we can work on fixing the form. But I don't care how much you fix the form. If he doesn't have shoot mentality, it's not going to work. So he's going to have to go somewhere with it where they're going to be patient with him and really, I don't want to say not expect much, but in reality, that's how I really feel. Like he needs to go somewhere where scoring definitely is not expected, and they just need another ball handler and defender.
So clearly, he's damn. What I was about to say? Oh, clearly he would make any contender that's already a contender a better team. Like most contenders that's already a contender. If you add Ben Simmons, yeah, he gonna take your team to another level. He's
Yeah,
gonna,
yeah.
yeah. But when it comes to, oh, we're going to send him to a team that's trying to become a contender. Me and you had this conversation off air when I was saying that he needs to be put in a situation where he's the second best player without feeling like he's the second best player, which is a very tricky thing. Like, so
It's
with Joel
impossible.
Embiid, he couldn't ever feel like he was as good as Ben Simmons is. Even with his shooting woes, Ben Simmons is a really good player. But there was never any doubt who was the best player in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Simmons has to be put in a situation where he can feel like a number one without truly being a number one. And it's
Maybe.
kind of like a Chris Middleton situation. Chris Middleton can feel like he's a number one and not be a number one. Chris Middleton is somebody who's being relied on in crunch time and clutch moments more so than the actual best player on that team by far. And that's the type of situation that Ben Simmons has to be in. Like if it's not going to happen. But if I could pair Ben Simmons with somebody like a Paul George, that would be the perfect pairing. You want to tell me Paul George is the better player? Cool. It's debatable. And that's the type of situation that he needs to be put into if you want to get the best out of Ben Simmons.
I
I
think
don't think
that's yeah,
I
I
don't
think
think
that's so far
making him
from
a third option on a team that's not, like I say, if you put him on a contender, if you send him to Golden State and be like, hey, we gonna make it work with you, then of course he's gonna, he's gonna fit right in and they're gonna be right back in the championship contender conversation or whatever. Of course, like I say, I'm talking about outside of contenders. Like him going to Portland, I don't think is gonna help him any. To
no.
like that's probably the worst one to me. When we first talked about him being traded, I said I'd like to see him in Minnesota. I like what they have to put around him to where he can fit. Ben Simmons can step in Minnesota and be like, "Yeah, I'm the best player here," and ain't nobody gonna really push back on that. But is he really the best player there? Is his ceiling higher than Anthony Edwards is? Is he a better player than Karl Anthony Towns is at this point?
Yeah.
So
I
situations like that, I think, is where he would really thrive in.
I think he needs to go somewhere just with zero expectation. And if you want to say Minnesota, cool, and not for the same reasons though. I'm saying send him to Minnesota because nobody thinks Minnesota's going to win many games
And I
anyway.
disagree. I think if you put Ben Simmons in Minnesota, well, for one, Minnesota has had higher expectations than they've been able to reach for like 5 years now, and I
Well,
don't
it's getting pretty bad.
and I don't see that stopping. Honestly, I see next year especially how Anthony Edwards played towards the end of last season, expectations are still going to be higher than what they should be for a Minnesota team. You
Mm-hmm.
put somebody like Ben Simmons on that team, expectations still going to rise.
Yeah, and like I said, I just think he needs to go to a bad team. Period.
Yeah, and I think
Top
that is the worst. Yeah,
top 10 worst teams. That's
yeah,
why I want to see him go, simply because he is not about feeling like I'm better, but simply just so he could blend in and
hmm
shoot and struggle just as much as everybody else, so he can see whether I shoot it or the next person shoot it, it's necessarily not going to go in. He needs to
yeah,
be put in a situation where he's really not expected to do much.
yeah.
He Ben Simmons is in a very, very, very tricky situation. But I think anybody who takes him saying we just got our second best player, that's not nothing. Like, they're far from a contender. They're far from anything.
Yeah, and we disagree on that, just depending on the team.
Yeah.
Um, um, Chris Paul has a amazing dollar amount attached to his player option. It's north of $40 million. Um, does he want to be back in Phoenix? Would be the question.
I think so.
I would think not. and
Yeah.
I figured we would. I
Well,
figured
no,
we
no, no,
would
no.
get
I'm
that.
not gonna say it's his best option, like it's the first choice, but I'm just saying if that happens, I don't think he's sitting there kicking himself. But
Well, see, my thing is the control is really in his hand. Like either he wants to
okay.
be there or he doesn't.
That's
So does he want to be in Phoenix?
well, and then again, you got to think he's looking for the multi-year deal. Like, who wants to sign a 1 year deal? Like, let's get a 3 year deal together. Now I want to be in Phoenix.
So that's kind of tricky too because if he ends up extending, getting a 3 year deal, he's not going to be making $40 million a year. That's for one. It's
True,
going to drop down to probably more about 30. We'll give
true,
you 30 million over 3 years.
true.
36, 37 years old next season. How important is it for him to win a championship?
60
I,
million extra, 60
I've
million
always,
dollar. Go
I've
ahead.
always told you I don't think Chris Paul wants it bad enough. I've always told you that.
Well,
And
if it's a championship or either 60 million extra dollars I can receive by signing a contract, I mean, I'm not mad at him for taking an extra 60 million, because if you're telling me he can get a 3 year 90 million deal from Phoenix, or a 1 year 25 $30 million deal from the Lakers.
well, no, I'm working under the assumption that if he wants out of Phoenix, it's going to be a signing trade.
Mm,
So, or just him picking. Look, I'm only picking up my player option in order to be traded. So he's going to. I figure he's going to make $40 million this next season, regardless of who he plays for. So that's the assumption I'm working under. $40 million he's going to
oh,
get next season if he's not playing for
okay,
Phoenix.
I got
So
you.
if you're telling me I'm still going to get my $40 million at least for this one season,
Oh yeah, I'm elsewhere then. If you're
yeah,
looking at it like that, yeah. But
yeah.
I'm kind of looking at it more like, I don't want to call it an investment, but just longevity. Like, okay, at this point, I still showed I can play. I still show how
Mhm.
important I am to a team.
Yeah,
I can decline this 1 year, and they can trade me on a long-term deal, or I'm still open to saying, let's get a multi-year deal done, Phoenix.
hmm
You
yeah,
feel me?
and
Yeah.
and I think once again, this to me it's really gonna answer the question for me now. Like once a player gets to 36, 37 years old, hey, is you chasing the title or are you just hanging around for the money? Like what's really going on here? Because that's the
Well, I
only
mean,
time it becomes acceptable. Like
well, he's
once you get above 35 years old, nigga, do whatever it takes for you to get that championship if you don't have one yet. We saw it with Gary Payton, we saw it with Karl Malone. Hell,
but
we've seen
but
it more recently. But
the money that the Lakers was paying them two guys was nowhere near Chris Paul. That's what I'm saying. Like, if somebody throws a 3 year deal on the table for Chris Paul, and he pass up a 1 year deal to sign with the Lakers or whoever on the sign and trade, I'm not saying, oh, he's just all about the money or he don't care about winning. Like, there's literally 60 million extra dollars that he just made.
Reg, like so once how long has Chris Paul been in the league? 16 years?
16 years.
I
Yep.
can assume I can I'm it's safe to, well hell it's safe to assume off this last contract he signed, he's made well over $200 million in his career.
Look, let's not even go down that road. We know he's filthy rich. Generations are going to eat off the money Chris Paul has
Exactly.
made from the NBA and endorsements. However, a lot of people always get this misconstrued. Just because these dudes are financially stable for generations, that don't mean they still trying to leave money on the table.
But it means, but to me, as a fan, or as
Okay,
somebody who,
as a fan, okay.
or somebody who, if I was in the situation, if I'm 36, 37 years old and I don't have a championship, and I'm an NBA player, a Hall of Fame NBA player, the only thing that's separating me from the greatest of the greats is I ain't got no fucking title. I'm
Yeah,
trying to go win a title, especially if the difference is, like you said, an extra $50 million for an extra 2 years, or I can make my 1 year $40 million and then see what I get after this.
yeah.
I got to try to get the title. I got
If
to.
if you're gonna tell me he's comfortable with walking away from the game of basketball after he wins the title next year, then I can kind of get it. But I'm just being completely
And
honest
I
with
can
you.
even
Talk,
see that, especially after
yeah,
the his injury history in general, but the
yeah,
way that it affected him this season too,
yeah.
age is starting to show.
Yeah, but you know, Carmelo and Gary Payton's salary combined for that year with the Lakers didn't equal what Chris Paul is going to be expecting to make this
Oh, of
this
course, but
upcoming
once
season.
again, it's a different
Yeah,
NBA as well. Like he's
yeah,
making, yeah, this is a different
yeah. And
ball
then
game.
even when people think of Gary Payton, no one thinks Gary Payton the NBA champion. Like he has to remind people he won a
Yeah, he
championship.
didn't even win in the LA. Karl
I
Malone
thought he won with
retired, and then
Miami.
he went into Miami.
Right.
Gary Payton went to Miami and got
But
one.
I'm just saying in general, like nobody remembers that because you wasn't a attribute to the team
Yeah,
that
but Chris
won.
Paul would be. That's the thing. Like he's still in a position that I'm going to be a big factor on the championship team. I go
Okay.
to the Lakers, I'm a big part of that championship.
Yeah, we see it so many times where NBA players, NFL players, whoever, turn down the chance to go and sign with a great team for less
Hmm.
money because so much more money is still
Hmm.
over here. Like
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
yeah. So
And once
I
again, it
complete.
depends. It always, to me, the reason I'm on this side of it for Chris Paul is because he's in his last days, regardless of how you want to look at it. Now, if he was 32, 33 years old, and you saying, look, he went and signed 3 years because he wanted that extra 50 million, I understand. I
Yeah,
completely understand. But you telling me he's 36, about to be 37, and him signing up for 3 more years is exactly just that. I just want that extra $60 million
I
because I
feel
know I'm not winning the title in the Phoenix.
I feel you. And I'm one of those guys like a championship doesn't like I don't want to say it doesn't mean everything because that's the reason you play the game, but it
Exactly.
has
That's the
but
reason you
it
play the
but
game.
it's different levels to it. Chris Paul being the third best player on the Lakers stay healthy. He averaged 16 points, 10 assists, and they win the championship. I don't think that puts Chris Paul over whoever they already got over him in that point guard conversation.
I do because I think the only thing that you're holding against Chris, not you, but the
Yeah,
only thing people in general is holding against him is you don't have a ring.
yeah.
Now him,
Like
now like you
who's
say,
better?
he gets
Who do you have better? And we're gonna cut it short because we went over until an hour. But just me and you talking. What point guard do you have over Chris Paul right now? That if he wins a ring next year, you like okay now Chris Paul is better than that guy.
for me personally, that's I would actually have to think about it to be honest with you. I'm just basing it off of the conversations that I've been hearing.
I got you.
The people be like, yeah, he's out. I've heard recently he's outside of my top five right now. He gets a title, he jumps two people. You know,
I
so
mean it's hard to put. I mean
because
just off the top of
consensus
my head,
because
the Magic.
consensus is usually Magic, Isaiah, and then
Yeah, John Stock. People put John and John Stock. That's per. John Stockton could have won 5 rings, and you know why I'm still putting
Yeah,
him.
I was about to say I know how you feel, but people have
Yeah,
John Stockton before Chris Paul, and if Chris Paul wins the title, guess what? That's one of those guys he's going to jump.
bro, I don't think so because folks view John Stockton as Jesus, bro.
That's
So
white people. We talk about. I'm talking about the NBA fan base as a whole. But yeah, like you said, we need to wrap it up. But right now the talk is, of course, I'm a Lakers fan, so that's all I'm looking
I
for is
feel you.
Lakers news. Ever since the NBA Finals wrapped up, you get report after report after report about who we looking at, who's looking at us.
I need to get
Montrezl
DeMar
Harrell,
DeRozan down there. Go ahead, get DeMar DeRozan, man.
I definitely take
Right
the
on
Rose.
the low too. On the
I
low,
would
he'll
take
come on
DeMar
the
DeRozan.
low.
But they said Montrezl Harrell is probably going to opt into his player option, which
Hmm.
is strange.
Right,
It has to be you're opting in so
save
we
the
can move.
face.
No, so we can move you. Like it has to be
I,
an agreement already between them because he's a Rich Paul client. There
I
has
think
to be an agreement with them already to where you gonna opt in so you can make sure you get your money, and we're gonna try to get you somewhere where you want to be, but you're not gonna be a Laker.
right.
Um, Chris Paul target list, Russell Westbrook on the target list. DeMar DeRozan has been on the target list, but now he's showing that mutual interest. Him and Kyle Lowry. So
Mm-hmm.
the draft comes up next week. There's definitely going to be a lot of player movement in the next week, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get into hopefully next week we can sit down and do this again and get into a bigger NBA conversation about the current off season. But it definitely should be a good one.
Right.
So yeah, we got that starting up next week, and we got training camps opening up next week. Like I said, hopefully we can get back here next week and sit down and do this again. It was great catching up in this
Yes,
manner.
sir.
Uh,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
Hopefully, whoever listens is able to decides to give us some feedback, some comments. Let's hear y'all thoughts too. We appreciate y'all for listening. Still love sitting down doing this. Got to get back to it, man.
Yes, sir. Got you, Sid. Good, my boy.
You boys not in my league. If you listen close, I'm coaching. Take keys, cause the boy hella dope without pushing a Blanco. Still stabbing bitches like 94 in the Bronco. If it's about the money, I'm leaving them hoes pronto. If I don't do nothing, I'm about line so. Every time I do it the